Today, where we're going to be talking about how AI and low code, no code can come together to make business impact in a very short period of time. And as always, I'm joined with my partner in crime, David Soden. And I really hope you all can interact today. Feel free to drop messages. We'd love to any kind of questions that you have as we go along. But really, today's going to be about more of a practice day, right? Where we're going to talk about really examples of what the things that we've been talking about for the last 2 months, right?
Yep.
Which is here are the concepts, here are the practice, and really want to start today and then walk through, you and me, David, have talked about this numerous times. Gen AI, large language models, low code, no code platforms, together with business problems, create business results. So, take me through some of the
Yep.
concepts that you look for when it comes down to these use cases.
Yeah, so it's really about accelerating innovation, which is here in the marketing for the Microsoft Power Platforms. It starts there. There are lots of low-code tools on the market, and this applies not only to the Power Platform, but any low-code platform, as well as any traditional development. So if you're, say, a Node.js backend developer or full stack developer, and you use React on the front end, these techniques, these ideas, these concepts, everything we've talked about for the last couple of weeks, all of this translates into today's demo. Just chose the Power Platform because it's super fast to accelerate different components, different pieces, show people in the business, hey, here's an idea, here's a concept. You mentioned this problem in this meeting. I just wanted to show you I took the initiative. I solved this problem very quickly. We used AI to bolster this, and you're going to receive, and I'll tell you this from personal experience, you're going to get a mixed set of emotions as well as shock and awe for people, because first, they're not going to understand how you did what you did so quickly. But on the flip side, AI still does scare certain people because they're like, I didn't know you could do that with AI. And then they're like, oh, wow. And so it's really about getting this quickly in front of people so that they can see something tangible. And so I've got some examples that may or may not be applicable for your business, but
Mhm.
the idea and the concept here is to get people to start thinking about, hey, maybe we could try this, or maybe we could try that. And we would love you guys to send us some questions. Both Sean and I are available on LinkedIn. You can, connect with us, send us a message, ask us a question. We're more than happy to connect with folks all the time to try to figure out, hey, how can we help you? Or maybe you've got some questions. We really put this podcast together for the purposes of you guys in the audience being able to, reach out to somebody, have a conversation, and try to figure out, hey, where do I need to go with this? And, a lot of you are just going to watch, and that's okay too. But that's why we exist. This is our purpose here. So I want to start off with something that many of you may or may not be aware. There is this company out there that provides a specific value to businesses. And the value here is a really, probably the industry's best, in my opinion. I know there's lots out there. And as soon as I say that, I'm going to regret it, because tonight a new platform is going to be unfolded and I'll be like, oh, maybe we need to move over here. This stuff changes so fast. But the company is 11 Labs. And what they do is something called text to speech, but it's not just any text to speech. I'm going to change this to one of the voices. I believe, actually, I don't have it in this demo, but if you go on YouTube a lot, you'll find a lot of narrations. If you go on LinkedIn a lot and you find a lot of narrations, I imagine in some cases this is taking a dent out of the voiceover industry. People that have been on radio for years are now retired, and now they're doing or have done voiceovers on the side. This has gotten so good to where that industry has definitely been disrupted. So Here I have some text. I'm going to pop open very quickly a another generative AI. I like to use this system called Poe because it allows me to do lots of stuff pretty quickly, and I can talk to it as well. Please write me a short story, keeping it to about a paragraph. And so you can talk to it and you can get information out of it. So now here I have this story, but now I can use this text. Sorry about bouncing around, guys. And I'm going to pick, let's just pick Brian. And I'm going to take this text here and I'm going to paste in that story. And I'm going to choose Get Audio. Now, a couple different things that I did here of interest just to show. By the way, this is free. You guys can sign up for 11 Labs for free, get a free account. If you reach out to either me or Sean, we're more than happy to, send out the Power app and show you how we did it here. It's no big secret or whatever, but in any event, you can get a free account with 11 Labs, and then you'll be able to get so many credits per day. I have 10,000 credits a day. I've already used 3,000 today. Probably use another 2,000 with this demo. And in any event, you get a handful of stuff a day. So you can pay for it too if you want. We don't make any money on this. We're not promoting them. We're just saying, this is a really great tool to use. And so you can use this in your applications. You can think of maybe the use case of where you would need professional sounding voice. So why I'm sitting here rambling, I'm going to give it time. You'll see some dancing ants across the top of these demos, and that'll just let us know that it's talking to the backend API, going out, getting some information and coming back. And now it is done. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. I'll start to play it. I won't go too long. Sean, I'll do a voice check just to make sure you're hearing something. And I'm going to turn my speakers up just in case it has to come out of my speakers back into the microphone.
Yeah, it's not coming through.
Okay, well.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I want to stop you right there with Power Apps as an example, but there's plenty of low code, no code platforms out there. Any API, 11 Labs being an example, or OpenAI, either a large language model, or any kind of cloud service you may create, you can put a front end to make it consumable in your way. Now, one of the things that I see that comes up so often for this is a lot of our clients that we talk to, they say, Sean, we can't use off-the-shelf SaaS offerings like, a Canva as an example, because, hey, we're worried about they're going to take our data,
Sure.
And this allows a happy middle ground. You can hit the ground running really quickly. You could start consuming and testing and using these services without worrying about having some kind of middleware getting your data or having security with your data. And certainly from a back office perspective, I think a low code approach is always the first discussion point.
That is true. And the other thing to call out is there is another, there's several of them, to be honest. But this is 11 Labs, which is a public company. And I know that some of you reviewing and watching this are still potentially concerned that, hey, this is still a company that I'm sending information to. They could take my information I'm sending. How they would use it, I have no clue. But nonetheless, it may be something of a security issue with your company or whatever. But the point is, there are open source versions of this. Now, they may not be as good, but they're close. They're really close. And so the point here is with cloud companies, typically that you're in, and you're usually in one of three. You're either in Amazon, you're either in Azure, or you're in Google Cloud. And it doesn't matter which one of those that you're in. You have your cloud computing center, just like you have a data center, or maybe you used to have or still have an on-prem set of servers in-house. Either way, in either use case, you can set these systems up in-house in your private cloud, in your whatever, And these open sourced softwares that do exactly just this to keep your data literally 100% inside the walls. So even that is another option that you can go to. Now, the costs to run something like that might be a little bit higher because you have to provide the infrastructure plus the technology, and you'll have to do some of the other maintenance, whereas these services are going to do the heavy lifting. It's software as a service. And so this is very niche. This is only text to speech. Now, you could go to OpenAI. They have Whisper. It's also available in Azure's version of OpenAI. It is there. It's got some quirky things going on right now. Hopefully, they'll get that fixed. But nonetheless, most of the functionality and features are there. But this is just one use case that's very specific. Now, if we move on to another demo, and this, I think, I hope, resonate with just about everybody watching this video. Now, in this example, we're taking a public Procter & Gamble shareholders meeting. And what we're doing, and I'm going to get this started because this does take about, we got a demo error. Let's see what we did here.
Oh, no, the demo gods have been displeased. We must sacrifice some cloud credits to appease them.
This is my fault.
Well, one thing that I'd like to pull out right now is we talk a lot about low code and Gen AI and being able to do something really fast and provide 80% of the value in 20% of the time. I call it the Pareto principle, right? So with this, what are the lines, right? Where does it make sense to shy away from low code, no code, right? What are the rules of the road that you would see to make people go, okay, well, maybe low code isn't the best place to start? Are there downsides to using this? Because I know we're very pro on this.
Yeah.
And I get questions all the time, Sean, if it's so great, why isn't everyone doing it?
Yeah, no, great question. And so the short answer is, and then we can go and expand in certain areas if you have additional questions there. But mainly the reason that you do not want to pick a low code, no code platform is because of the cost. It is a much higher buy-in to get started with low code, no code if you only have a single app. So low code, no code comes in the form of a platform. You get a whole entire platform. It's usually just not one thing, but you get a whole ecosystem behind it. And so if you're doing just one app, the return on investment, the cost of ownership could be pretty high. I'll give you an example, and I'll pick on the Microsoft Power Platform. So for example, that platform is available for free. It comes along for the ride with your standard Office 365 licenses. However, you're very and extremely limited to what you can use as a backend data source. The best use case scenarios, you're using SharePoint. The worst use case scenario, you're using Excel. I highly suggest never using Excel because of the issues of too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen. Well, if somebody's in the Excel file and you got an app running, it crashes, it gives all kinds of errors. It does similar to what you just saw there, but that was a different kind of an error. But anyway, the app won't work. And so if you just have this one app, it's very expensive. Another one that, and actually I had certification in this, is OutSystems. That's another low code platform. It's more closer to the wire of being pro code because you can switch gears very quickly. The Power Platform is starting to get there and come there as well. What in the world? Stop. Sorry about this. I got too many things going on
here. That's the beauty of being a techie is you're always online, and that means someone can always reach out and touch you.
This is true. Kind of lost my place. Oh, yes. So within the Power Platform, you wind up, and OutSystems, you have all of these other options to go into more pro code. But again, at $20 per user or hundreds of dollars per user per month, that cost adds up very quick, especially if you're a medium towards an enterprise business of 500 users plus. $20 a month per user for one app, that's a little bit crazy. Now, maybe not, depending on your perspective. That perspective might be you found a commercial off the shelf software and it is also $20 a month. Let's just pick out Salesforce, for example. You have in the Power Platform, you can even do this in OutSystems, a database accelerator, so to speak, where you have essentially a CRM system with pre-baked tables already built, ready to go. So if you're looking for a CRM system, Salesforce, even Dynamics and whatever, the costs just start to balloon up there. Typically what will happen is if you go into traditional development, and then this is the pro and the negative side, because it's both at the same time, is that if you do something in pro code, then you have to commit to potentially the infrastructure to run it. So you have your own cloud costs, which means skilled employees or a skilled partner that can help you manage that. The other thing then you have to worry about is support and maintenance. A lot of code, even the pro code, are based on libraries. And those libraries are third-party components or prepackaged, pre-built code. Nobody writes code from the ground up anymore. It's just the world we live in. Everything is either an interpreted code. It's not like Fortran or close to
libraries
language back when, the CIA and the governments were in the 50s having to write machine level code, and each machine had to be recompiled for $600,000 to $800,000. Those days are gone. COBOL, Fortran came in, and then you have more your traditional modern codes. So Python, .NET, all of they're pre-compiled code. So as these underlying base frameworks get upgraded, sometimes your code gets deprecated. And that means just like you just saw that in my demo. And this is worse in AI. And this goes full circle because that model that I was using that I thought was still good, it's already deprecated. It had a lifespan on the shelf for only 3 months, and now it's dead. I got to go in and change the code. It's a quick, minor change, but nonetheless, it's still a change that somebody has to make. And it's the same thing with all of these. So development, whether you're doing low code or development, whether or not you're doing traditional code, it really just comes down to what is your volume. The breakpoint and the positive for low code is if you have at least 3 or more applications, you're going to get a significant return on investment at that point. So it just doesn't make sense in most cases to do the traditional code in that use case. There's always an argument for either side or either use case, but generally speaking, I use those as a rule of thumb. Now, complexity also goes into it. I mean, if you're trying to boil the ocean, and some clients do, they go in with a requirements list. I need this. And you're like, wow, that's pretty significant and aggressive. It's going to take 3 years to roll this out. And the concern might be is there something that's available commercially off the shelf, a SaaS? And yes or no, or maybe. And in those use cases, I think a lot of hybrid type of decisions come from taking the opportunity to find something commercially available that has a good, strong API. You use the base SaaS application as the launching pad, and then you use their API to augment, come in behind the scenes, and just tweak the little parts that you need to get the value that you're looking for in the business. So there's 3 different ways to look at that, from low code and then.
Well, so what I'm hearing is your perspective is that it's an ecosystem, right?
Correct.
So that's the first thing is like, if you go out there and you buy your iPhone, right? And then your wife buys an Android, and your old son gets a Huawei, right?
Yep.
You're going to be buying 3 apps, and you're going to be very inefficient and spending extra money, right? The second thing that I kind of heard from what you just described is you got to understand who the user base is, and then who is going to be maintaining this. So if you have a large quantity of maintainers, right? If it is citizen developers, right? then yes, low code makes much more sense. But if it is a traditional app that you're exposing to the public with millions and millions of users, and that means seats, maybe low code doesn't make sense. But what about this happy middle ground that I know you and me like to play, which is seeing is believing, and the only thing more deficient than budget for IT is imagination. So if we can have a workshop and talk about, hey, we think there'd be value here, we think there'd be value there, which we like to do and explore with our clients all the time, we could go through and turn around a prototype that's only for internal demonstration use, that our clients can say, oh, okay, yes, we do believe there's value here. We could take 5, 10 people and start using this and collecting data so that you can have a good understanding of a long-term ROI, right? Yep. How do you sell multi-million-dollar digital transformation? You do it with hard ROI. And how do you get hard ROI? You get really good data. And how do you get really good data? You get prototypes, you do POCs. So, full circle around, there's many opportunities to use low code. So let's take us through another one of these examples, David.
Yeah, so this use case is a problem that was derived from a problem statement that said, we need to beef up the quality of our call center or our support center in various use cases. And the client was, didn't matter who the client was, didn't matter what the perspective was, but we provided 4 use case examples of perspectives. So this could be somebody supporting the organization, could be a large cable network supporting somebody from billing. It could be you're running an e-commerce section and you have questions about the product where, this is really what they call, what I've coined as an IntelliChat trainer. And it's just an agent simulator. And so what this is really good. Now, what this doesn't do is this doesn't log the interaction, but the point here is, and the illustration is that you should log this and log who's using it. And the reason for that is it's much easier to monitor a training use case scenario than turning a green, inexperienced agent loose on your customers, having a really bad experience, and then having to deal with any potential fallout out of that. And so you can simply sidecar that individual by having them, have a tag team buddy in a real use case scenario where they just listen in. And then the other use case is while they're dealing with whatever that might be, they could use a simulator like this to essentially go through. So I'll change this to a product question. Get the little kitty going here. All right, so now we're in this perspective, in this simulator. And now here's a customer. I recently bought a blender from your store, and it's supposed to have multiple speed settings. And I can only get it to operate at 1 speed. What should I do? Now, I'm going to be ridiculously sarcastic and just simply, be the worst horrible agent there ever could be. So this is tongue in cheek, okay? So now this will go out and it says, this is quite unusual. The demo gods have definitely not worked in my favor today. So that should have absolutely upset my customer. And for some reason, the AI has gotten confused and now it thinks that it's the agent. So let me reset this one more time because that was.
Well, I mean, the idea here is that, I'd like to ask, how long does it really take to pull something like this together, right? Yeah. So, we have a workshop. We talk about, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have some kind of trainer, right, for our people, and so that we can take certain edge cases and throw loop-de-loops at them. How long does it take, David, to pull something this together so that we can come back to that workshop team and say, look, here's the art of the possible, right? Here's something that you can throw at a couple agents and see what they think, see how much value it would be for the team.
So this app came together in one day, but as you see it today, it was a total of 3 days. It was working on one perspective, get one perspective working, and then just once that was working, circle back and then just add the rest of the remaining ones. It was the majority of it wasn't doing the app as much as it was testing it. And so as you just saw, I've never used that horrible, like I hope no agent would ever say that to somebody, but I never went over the top. But you can see here, I redid it. And this time I said, well, just read the manual. And you can see the emotion of the individual that I'm supposedly chatting with is an indicator to let the agent kind of know, hey, what's the sentiment analysis based on the response? And so there's a couple of things to take away from here. First, we've got Copilot integrated into the experience so it can help the agent. And so the agent will provide their draft here, and then Copilot, Microsoft, will come along and it will help you massage your language to be, what it needs to be or what it thinks could be better. And so this is helping your company's communication. So there's layers and layers of this AI thing going on through here. We also have a sentiment analysis area that I showed you here with this. And then, of course, like I said, all of this data could be collected to the end. And at this point, I programmed this thing to be as difficult as possible, the customer anyway. And so it's going to get really challenging. And the goal here is to not upset the customer, not have them leave, and not have them so angry that they just, do whatever. So there's a whole set of analytics that could be performed here, which I have not recorded, but all of this could be aggregated over time by the agent and whatever. And then that component could be tied into a production system to be used in real world use cases. So one might consider rolling this out into production with just the sentiment analysis aspect alone in the chat, because it's a litmus test to whomever is working in a call center to understand, hey, what is the temperament of this client? Because different folks from around the world speak different languages, which that kind of is a segue into our next test here. But the whole point here is that all of this is very quick. It can come together in a couple of days. I think a week at most to get just a general concept moving is more than generous for these types of things. And if you wanted to roll something out near or close to production, 30 to 60 days would be a good assessment.
Yeah, I mean, but we have to balance, right? Because this may instigate a complete RFP, right?
Correct.
Right, so that you could say, okay, let's go out and find out what's in the marketplace. I know a great company that I kind of work for that has something like this already, but the point isn't that every application has to be in production, right? Correct. To write an RFP, you're going to need to provide certain data. You're going to have to provide certain use cases. You're going to have to provide certain things to make sure that you get a quality outcome. And, having a prototype like this or running a very small pilot with something like this would allow you to answer the questions that you don't know exist, right? And really helps get that transformation on its feet. Because, transformation starts with an idea. It starts with a vision. At some point, you're going to need help to get that vision brought to reality. And to educate those people that need to be in that boat with you, having data, having visual demos like this allow that art of the possible to become possible.
That is
So
true. You hit.
really interested on the language one. Can you walk me through that one, David?
Yeah, I'll do that. I do want to just quickly comment on something that you
Mhm.
brought up, which is absolutely paramount. A lot of times, and this is most germane to RFPs because I've seen this happen so many times. Companies will go out with an RFP to customers. They will get respondent to their RFP from the vendors, and they're getting asked questions that they're like completely blown away with, not really quite sure how to answer. And it's probably from that use case of what you were talking about. There's problems that they had that they didn't know that they had. And so I think a good takeaway for anybody listening to this is consider doing a workshop with a vendor. Again, Sean and I know a really great company to do that, or have a workshop just internally, getting your stakeholders involved and going through like a mock use case or a mock scenario, and encourage people to ask questions, find the holes, find the leaky boards in your ship, and try to figure out how would you plug that, or what is ideal. Or if you need help from the vendor to solve that problem, then add that to the RFP. How would you propose to fix this, whatever use case or scenario? And now these become much better and much clearer. Even though it's ambiguous, you'll probably find yourself in a discovery use case scenario, which is usually and typically best. But then we go full circle back into these types of use cases where a very small pilot in a couple of days or a couple of weeks to test that component, to test that facility. Maybe imagine this is the whole app, where really the thing that you're hung up on is the sentiment analysis. How can we detect, how do we solve the problem of, our agents don't quite get the clue or the tone that the customers are talking about, or they can't tell what's the emotion is behind what's being said. And so this will kind of take us into the next demo. So I will ask a question. Well, actually, you know what? I've got some text prepared to bypass this because it does seem that the use case of the audio coming through on the podcast doesn't work as good. So what I'm doing here is I want you to envision. So for example, I don't speak Spanish that well. I know like a couple of quick phrases and maybe words, but I'm really horrible. Okay. So I'm going to show you how it's supposed to work before I paste in some text in Spanish. Hola, mi habla español un poquito. And so you can kind of see what's going on here. So a couple of things is, first, it was doing text to speech, or rather voice to text, and then it's doing text translation. So it was able to record and translate all at the same time. In addition to that, the European standard is a CEFR rating, and they go from like A1, A2, B1, blah, blah, all the way up to like C2, where like you're a super expert in that language or super fluent. And so this is quite helpful for, when you're maybe giving interviews or you have agents that need to speak certain things. And so in this use case, I'm simply going to pop in some text. And this text is actually, let me refresh this again. I'll pop this right in. So this text I'm putting in here, and it's doing the translation. And in addition to the translation, I get the CEFR rating, which is pretty good. It's almost a C. So I would say it's a little bit better than average. And so if you hover over it, it's very hard to see on screen. But it basically just says that the text demonstrates a strong understanding of complex sentence structure, blah, 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 blah. This feedback is based on the CEFR standards in Europe. But as a company, we have our own standards. We have our own things that we go and evaluate. And so what you do is you click on the evaluate. You have a rules engine behind the scenes of your criteria, based on the spoken language, based on the translation, and now you get something very specific as it relates to your company's standards. And so all of this is now broken apart and given at the end a high level or overall assessment. This is quite consistent from translation to whatever may be spoken. And so you can test in all of these different languages that's available out of the gate. And actually, I did limit them to some extent, but by and large, this is the most popular. And so this is really just showing another good use case of hiring good quality candidates if this is something that is, in the wheelhouse. Now, this is a small segment of a much bigger segment that we talked about, I think maybe 4 weeks ago, where we demonstrated the AI interview assistant. And so this is yet another component that could be even built into things of that nature. It's very similar, but it is coming at it from a whole nother perspective, but it is from the HR point of view. And so we see this again and again. This app took 3 days to create, took an extra couple of hours to add this CEFR. Majority of it was in the testing, but again, goes back to the point where you can do your RFP inquiries. You can do your art of what's possible. You can use these types of tools, not so much to roll out production apps, because maybe this needs to be in a React app. Maybe this needs to be in your out system. Maybe it needs to be in whatever. But the point is, a handful of developers in your organization with the power of, say, for example, the low code, no code platform from Microsoft. And you can knock this type of stuff out very, very quickly with a handful of competent developers. I would say from a scale of 1 to 10, 2 or 3 being the citizen developer, 4 to 6 being maybe a beginner, 7 to 8 being more along the lines of a really good, powerful, developer on the Power Platform, and like 10 would be somebody that can do this and professional code or traditional code on top of it. So they can literally just take it and translate it. And so you can see all of this coming through here. One other demo that I can show that is pretty interesting right here. But before I get into this, I wanted to circle back to what we just showed and see if you had any questions or any perspective that we could share with the audience.
No, I think we do have a question. Just reading it real quick. Okay, so when it comes down to building these, what kind of collaboration would you call this, like a Figma Plus, right? Where, you could collaborate on, I'm guessing here, that you can use this in the workshop to build the UI, stub it out, and then use Gen AI to plug in and other APIs to plug in the functionality on the back end for a proposal. Is that something that you've done before, or is that something that would be helpful?
No, I think that's a great question. So when you said Figma Plus, let's take a look at behind the scenes into an app. I'll just go into, let's just do a blank app just to show you the canvas. So the idea here is, now this is for the citizen developer or low code, no code developer. You're actually going to get to see a peek behind the scenes of what this kind of looks like. And the analogy is if PowerPoint had a child and its parents were PowerPoint and Excel, they came together, you'll have the culmination of this Power App. And so, for example, you can come up here to the insert menu. Now, these are all of the different popular controls. Think of this as your toolbox. So your Figma section. So if I need a date picker control, I pick the date picker and here we go. If I quickly play the app to see what it might look like, I have a full control that allows me to go through all of the different, calendar controls that you would normally get to. And now all I did was drag and drop it. So if you want to build or have a workshop session designing the layout, the look and the feel, you can have what is called pseudocode conversations where you build out the UI, the UX, and then you say, what should the user experience be? And you can start walking through and notating those pitfalls or those questions or those, hey, I didn't know that until it was done. And you haven't written a line of code at all. So another thing I can do is I can put a text label up here and I can put a button over here, right? And so I could say, when I click this button, I want this text to show whatever the value is that is in here. That would be like, I don't know, a really stupid use case of doesn't make any sense. But the point is you can just drag these controls out and have that session. Now, to write the code, it does take a little bit of time. For this, it's not that long, but for other use cases that are going to be real world use cases, it will take a little bit of time. And that's, the couple of days, the frustrations that come with, hey, I forgot the syntax, I got to go look it up, or you've got unexpected errors, or you got just weird things that come up in the development process of whatever. But the code written for this, you can see up here, there's a little box. There's areas that you can write different pieces of code on. And the code goes up here, just like Excel. If you are writing a formula, you write literally this formula here. So I would just write, on select, I would say set a variable. And then you give IntelliSense that comes in here. It kind of helps you pick whatever it is that you need to do. And this is more programmatically, like really heavy lifting, more geeky kind of stuff with it. But if you consider just this control alone, I don't have to build this. It's already built. The programming, the heavy lifting is already done. I just need to wire this widget to this widget to that widget. And that's all it is your code is really just the glue code that makes all the stuff interact together and work. All the real coding is already done behind the scenes on that kind of stuff. So this is what it means to be able to prototype and work through workshops and different things of design to get to something that is maybe something like this. And so this again is using AI. It has context of me, the user. So it's looking at my email inbox. Now I have filtered the email inbox to only include emails where this is shown. And I did this very specifically so I don't show all of the other content in my inbox. But nonetheless, the idea here is I click on this mail. I can see that I've got an email from this Bob character, and he wants to know a particular question. Now, if I click generate, what will happen is the way that this button and the code behind that button it's trying to be a helpful assistant to draft an email to this client as a response. And so now here you have all of the very specifics of what this is. And at this point, you can either massage and work through it here, or you can click this button, which is going to come in off screen. And I have a security mechanism. It's not going to let me not with sharing my screen. So anyway, it will pop up essentially, I'll just pop this out to show you what this does work with when I'm not doing a screen share. But basically, it'll pop up a window just like this, which is your email window. And at this point, you can go ahead and it will bring all of this text into the body of the email. And at this point, then you can continue to work through that email, finish it, and you'll go ahead and send it. But the point and the illustration of this demo is that it will help you create your responses into an app without having to, say, for example, copy this out of here, coming over to, now this is a public one, but anyway, wow, something really happened. All my authentication mechanisms just got completely trashed here. But in any event, I can come through here and say I need.
So I really chips my mind, when we originally, I believe his name was Aaron, right? Who
Right.
has a book on this. Definitely want to call out to him because, that's how you can get started, at least in Power Apps.
Correct.
But definitely want to circle around on that smarter email. What's the use case on that one?
So the use case would be that you're either a customer service representative, you're anybody in the world that is in a professional environment where you would like to have your emails written in a way that is either consistent or conforms to a certain set of standards. And so one of the things that you're not seeing in this demo is the code behind the scenes that basically goes and says, when AI does, and here, this is a good use case example. So for here, all I said was, I need a response. And I pasted in the body of that. Now, this was the instruction. I need a response. Generic. I'm going to get a generic whatever. Now, one of the things I could have done, it says, I need a response, and my company's standards for responding to emails are the following. And then you could provide it a list of rules. And then at that point, you could even give it a couple of inbound examples, such as this, and an example response. So what that is doing is it's providing a really restrictive set of guardrails that says, I don't just need a response, but I need a response within this criteria rule set. I need it formatted in this particular way. And so it will then do all of the heavy lifting. It ensures consistency and conformity. And then it's just very, very simple to pop this button into an email, actual email screen and hit send if you work through the email here, or you can just do it immediately and work through all of that in the email. The point and the takeaway here is it's time savings, and to your company, it's providing a lot of consistency and conformity to some sort of standardization. It could even be a governance thing as well.
Cool. I mean, again, I think through these 4 or 5 prototypes that we're playing with here really show the capability of thinking differently when it comes down to digital transformation. You don't always have to say, okay, let's do a 3-year cycle, right? Sometimes, you want, especially with AI, you want to pick your battles, right? You want to find out what is your biggest bang for your buck. And, this is the difference between trying to do a digital transformation of one vision across 3 years, or having a broad vision of digital transformation and hundreds of activations that reinforce, so that ROI that you gain back, you can reinvest, right? People ask all the time, Sean, I want to innovate. How do I innovate? Well, you innovate with ROI. You do something that's never been done before. That's innovation, with an ROI attached to it. And then you can go back to the business and say, look, I did something that's never been done before. Here's the results. I'm going to ask for more budget. I'm going to take the value we've created, reinvest it, and make a bigger vision, or 2 or 3 activations. And then eventually, quantity will roll up to quality, and you'll be able to accomplish your vision by knocking that small piece of quartz off to create your masterpiece, right? Having an incremental approach to digital transformation can be done, I think, just as you demonstrated here today, David.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to at least check it out. There's a plethora of tools that's out there, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Inevitably, we all have to learn and start somewhere, and you're going to get stuck. So again, Sean and I are available on LinkedIn. You can find us there. We have a website too as well called Transformation Leaders Podcast. Am I in Google? No, that's why all my stuff's not working. I was in the wrong browser. I don't ever use Edge, but I had to use Edge for a different reason today. Anyway, so there is our website right there. We also have a dedicated YouTube channel where all of the podcasts are being funneled down into, so you can catch any one of our past episodes. We have our upcoming streams going on here, and actually you can see us talking right here in the live show, which is where we're at currently right now. But definitely, Sean and I are more than happy to help you with any questions that you may have and or explore the possibilities.
Yep, and those live viewers today, thanks for the questions, and even better, the feedback. We love the feedback. We're going to continue. If you have different topics that you want discussed, if you want different leaders that you'd love on the podcast, if you'd like, if you know any sponsors, we don't have any sponsors yet, so feel free to contact us on all these topics. And David, I'll see you next week.